What's up, guys? One of the ecom brand founders I've been working with has actually just recently scaled his store to $300,000 per month in recurring new customer revenue. Absolutely insane case study. And by looking at over 30 ad accounts as we speak, I've basically analyzed one key thing. And that is, I've asked myself, what is the difference of how people run their ads that make a shit ton of money with ecom versus when I started out and I just was looking on YouTube on how to set up campaigns, how my creatives are going to work. And everyone was telling me to rip content and everyone was telling me to go to Calidata. And then people tried to get around, ad account bans with virtual machines and all that stuff, which is actually complete total nonsense. And I actually came across 6 different things that I analyzed were completely different than all the big guys are doing it versus all the complete beginners are doing wrong. And I'm just gonna hand it to you on a silver platter today. All right, so let's get right into it. The very first thing that people do that make a lot of money with paid ads is they isolate everything. Every variable, right, that you see inside of their ads library is there for a purpose. Every single variable, you can really go so incredibly deep on every letter in the script, everything until the very frame, right, that you see in the video ad, or until a very pixel on an image ad is tested, isolated, right? For example, we have the hook test, which is testing the lines of text on blank white background image ad where there's only text on it, 50 of them, and only taken the best ones in terms of click-through rate on the actual creators. Number 1, you can do the same thing for landing page headlines. Number 3 is obviously you can make specific landing pages for winning ads, right? And there's no rule that's telling you cannot have 10 specific different product pages, just basically redirecting each winning ad to the right one. 4, disqualifiers. Every single thing, every single word in the script, every single today, this week, this month, every single piece of urgency and everything that you can expect is there for a reason. And people and very smart minds in creative strategy have put those pieces in there for a very specific reason. So the biggest reason why people are failing with paid ads is because they're not tracking anything. You don't have a system in place. And this is the important part, because in a business, running a business is 3 different parts: advertise, build, and deliver. And every single person on ecom YouTube is only focusing on advertise, whereas build and obviously the deliver part are equally important. And building a business means building the systems. Now, you can literally see how skilled someone is by looking at how many metrics do they track. That's literally tells you that equals to the amount of skill that someone has in whatever they do. Because what else is the skill, right? Clicking the right buttons on CapCut, downloading the right Calidata videos. Like, ask yourself, really, what is the skill in making creatives, right? If it's not tracking everything and isolating as many pieces as possible, and then only throwing together the winning pieces, the winning variables, so-called, and then having winning ads and printing winning ads into the ad account and having an entire system behind it. I have creative workflow sheets with over 1,000 lines of inputs in there, and someone had to put the stuff in there. It's not easy. It takes so much unbelievable amounts of time. Yes, it does, but it always pays off every single time. And so isolating everything is probably the most important, most valuable, craziest way you can first of all validate if someone is skillful or if it's just full of shit. And then second of all, obviously, how successful they are going to be in the future. So if there's one specific behavior change that you can take from going out of this video is track everything until the smallest variables, and you will see how more systemizable everything is. And you'll never ask yourself, okay, what do I do here? What do I do now? You'll never ask yourself that question because everything is going to be in the numbers. It's super, super important. And then the second thing is, right, this is something which a lot of people do wrong. And I personally think that this is something, actually my personal biggest learning this year, because I've been experimenting with this a lot, which is looking and depending on your ROAS and then moving from that to only your new customer marketing efficiency ratio. So this NCMER might look super confusing. And what is this, right? ROAS, obviously return on ad spend, makes a lot of sense. Obviously, direct response, 7-day attribution window usually. Someone sees an ad and then, want them to buy, what's the return on that dollar? Okay, that's the ROAS. The reason why that is so inaccurate is because when you actually start putting more inputs and more thoughts and more channels, more traffic into your business, what's going to happen is all of a sudden you're not only on Facebook, but you're on Google, and then you have emails, and then you maybe have organic traffic sources, and you have word of mouth, and to top everything off, you have recurring revenue, meaning you have subscription offers in place, or at least launch products consistently and have a good delivery system, good, everything logistics, so that people come back and buy again and don't churn out of your business. Now, whenever that is actually the case, what you're going to realize is your ROAS, the immediate direct response ROAS, gets significantly less important. And yes, of course, it's cool to be profitable, but if you know that your CAC to, for example, the LTV ratio is 20, then you can confidently spend more money on ads, even if the ROAS tells you that you're unprofitable. And it's just cash flow, okay? Obviously, cash is king, and the best brands, the best businesses always have liquid cash. However, and this is the most important part, right? If you want to depend on the ROAS for the rest of your life, you're going to have a very, very hard life in the future. Why? Because CPMs get more expensive and conversion rates go down. Meaning there's more competitors, there's more supply, and there's less demand because people are obviously super, skeptical. Market sophistication, you can look that up, is getting increasingly higher every single day. So it does not make sense to optimize your ROAS forever. What actually does make a ton of sense is your new customer marketing efficiency ratio. The MER, the marketing efficiency ratio hereby, just tells you how much is all the ad spend versus all the revenue. So all the marketing expenses on every platform and every email that you sent out and every creator that you paid versus all the revenue, including, recurring revenue, including, for example, like let's say, organic sources, word of mouth, everything that you get. Okay. Now the NC part is the new customers. So we're taking out the recurring part and actually how profitable are we overall when we're marketing to new customers, people who don't know us yet. And that is actually such a million times more important, more powerful metric than the ROAS, because that is also, by the way, when you're looking into getting equity later on, or when you're looking to sell your ecom store, that is what you look for. That is what investors look for in businesses. When someone buys a business, he doesn't care about the ROAS, about the immediate direct response ROAS. All he cares about is how good is the business bleeding, meaning the new customer acquisition, which is the blood of the business, and then the lifetime profit, how much higher is that? Boom. That's how you increase the value of your business. All right. Isn't that complicated? But everyone gets it wrong and no one talks about it for some reason. Then we have stoic media buying. And this is actually a pretty funny one because every single time that someone gets into media buying, gets into paid ads, gets into ecom, whatever they do, the first thing is they start sitting inside of the ad accounts and refreshing it all day long and turning off an ad after a specific cent amount of spend, right? Believe it or not, the best ad accounts to look at, some of the founders forget a couple ads. They forget maybe looking into the ad account for a week, right? It's Giga Chad style media buying. It's ridiculous how they do it. It's stoic. You cannot have a paranoid media buyer. If you have one, by all means, fire him. Okay. So if your business has a paranoid media buyer or a scared media buyer, or he's scared to overspend on specific assets, then it's very likely that you're not going to make money. And this is actually a pretty crazy one because once again, with the drop of immediate ROAS, it gets increasingly more important to think more long term, to know other metrics of the business. What is the average LTV, right? What is the average, everything. So what, how much can you really expect to pay per customer and still be profitable? And even if it's unprofitable on the long term, on the LTV perspective, how much of a chance do you actually give it to optimize and to learn? And then how many other concepts to introduce? How do you split up the creative tests, right? How do you media buy? How do you serve scale? If you're paranoid, you're not going to make money with paid ads. And yes, there are rules of, okay, turn off your ads after this amount of dollars and they don't have a sale. Yes, there are rules for that, and I'm aware. And yes, you should kind of follow them. But the thing is, if I could personally decide to spend too little amounts or to overspend 10 times, I would choose to overspend 7 days of the week because it always pays off better than not overspending. And ads do actually optimize and turn around, and they always optimize. The learning phase never really ends. People argue that the learning phase doesn't really exist. I think it does, and especially when it comes to metrics like this CPM, it will optimize a significant amount. And so anyone who tells you basically that, you should always look at the ad account and refresh it, probably does not make as much money as they tell you they do, okay? Be stoic about the media buying. Like, you literally just have to be emotionless. The best media buyers, this is kind of going hand in hand with sales, the best media buyers are the best salesmen because they're just sociopaths. Like, they really don't care about anything, about money being burned. Okay, for some reason, those ad accounts work the best, okay? So that's one more thing that you can kind of take. Now, next thing, iteration process. So one thing which I definitely will say here is that the biggest game-changing effect of my, personal stores and every store I've been working with was that whenever we implemented a iteration process into the paid ads system. What is an iteration? An iteration means that you run a test, right? But instead of then moving on to a different product or moving on to completely something random or doing something that doesn't make any sense, you actually look at the best ad, look at the weakest metric, and then only retest, making that one metric better. For example, if we, take into account that you've isolated the hook and you've done a hook test before, then if the hook rate then is bad, that it's not actually the hook's fault. Literally just know that it's not the hook's fault that the ad was bad. So it has to be the visual hook or the audio hook. Example. And then you make variations on that and retest the best ad based on the worst metrics. And that is how to properly make money with paid ads, right? You have to follow an 80-20 rule. 80% of the ads that you launch inside of your ad account have to be iterations, and only 20% are stuff that your ad account has never seen before. Okay. And this is a big misconception because a lot of people tell you, you've already ripped 20 candidate ads, rip 10 more, right? And this is such a funny rule because that's never going to work, because even if it does work, you have no clue why it worked in the first place, and hence you're never going to be able to make it again. Okay. Now, next thing. Basically switching from working in the business to working on the business, because when you get to a certain point, every entrepreneur gets to a certain point where a lot of the things that you guys do get not worth your time, if that makes sense. So what happens after a certain point is that you analyze the time spent on certain activities and you start measuring the money that you make in terms of hours. And specifically when you're working in the business, what's going to happen is you always trade a specific time amount for specific dollar amount, okay, every time. Now, the problem is a lot of people are not building businesses, they're building jobs, okay? So that's a huge problem. Now, what you have to understand is that if you don't optimize, you're never going to scale across a certain point. And that's the reason why you cap out, because you don't do higher leverage things, higher impact things. You as the founder, by all means, and I say this with all due respect, have better things to do than customer support, than editing videos, graphic design, and managing and reaching out to UGC creators. Like, that is not worth the hours of your time, meaning you outsource. And so you get to a point where you outsource not only the small leverage things, but even the high leverage things. And then you at that point where you're going to analyze everything, and all of a sudden you're just a manager. Everything else is automatically being worked on. And then all of a sudden you hire managers, and then all of a sudden you don't have to do anything anymore. And that is literally how you scale a business. You hyper scale a business by hyper scaling talent. Every entrepreneur that I've ever helped to get to a person point, or for example, myself too, I've realized talent is what is going to make the biggest change, because all these things I can tell you in these videos and everything that you do yourself, it all caps out at a certain point, right? When you do get across, like when you pass a certain scale, you're not that impressed by some crazy numbers anymore. All that happens, all that remains is, okay, very stoically and not emotionally, how do we get to the next level? And it's always better talent, A players, okay? Not a B player, an A player, which is going to cost you a lot of money, right? But you have to get him in your business, and that is what's going to bring you to the next level. Every single time, trust me, A players and talent is going to change your business, even if you think you're the best entrepreneur that you ever know. Okay, every entrepreneur usually has pretty big ego. So Trust me, there are people that can 10x your business, 10x just with their creative ideas. And you can actually, you should poach them for other brands and fight for them. Okay. It's always worth it. It always pays off. Now, last but not least, what I'm going to tell you in this video, how, brands that make money nowadays with ecom run their ads is they always have some type of creative diversity inside of their ad account. What does this mean, right? So usually creative diversity means that you have a big variety of different ad concepts inside of your ad account. So for example, we not only do only image ads or only VSLs or only UGC or whatever, but we purposefully have all of these ad concepts running in the ad account at once. And the reason why you want to do this is because a lot of people think, okay, well, my avatar is dog owners and I'm going to target hundreds and hundreds of millions of people that are all dog owners, but I'm just going to run UGC. The problem is, in that huge market of dog owners, if you only run UGC, there's only a fraction of them that actually respond to UGC. Meaning, by only having one ad concept inside of your ad account, you limit your market size, meaning your scalability, your hit rates, your chances of making anything work, and your CPMs get significantly higher. So how do you basically fight that? Well, you introduce different ad concepts to the ad account and optimize like that, because that is not only going to make you scale higher and obviously get completely different metrics, higher impact tests, meaning you make more money for invested time, and this is the craziest part, they actually positively influence each other's CPMs and each other's metrics, and just the fact that you have two different concepts will get both CPMs down. Absolutely crazy. That was pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for giving me your most important asset, which is actually your attention. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you a beautiful day.